We are, up in Fitchburg, and we've got a full house. And so the reason I'm doing this, is because you guys have been reading too much nice things about me in the paper.
Exactly.
So, and I want you to know, I'm with my wife, Bernadette.
Yep.
Date night. This is date night.
And this is dinner.
That's not good.
And Bernadette wants everybody to know that what they're writing in the paper, I'm worse. So seriously, folks, this Republican Party is alive and well in the grassroots. It is alive and well, and I'm going to tell you why, over the last 4 years, people have decided that the grassroots and conservatives should sit in the corner and shut up. Because that's what's happened. That's what's happened. Believe me, as I went through this, at the time, after each thing happened, I look at Bernadette and say, what is this all about? What is this all about? And what it is about, folks, it's about power, it's about money. And it's about the grassroots being told, do what we tell you to do. So having served in the legislature for 8 years, I understood that as a party, a lot of people don't want to get up and fight. They want to get in there, get their job, and stay. They don't want to take on the Democrats. So I saw that at the legislative level, and I got beat in 2018. The Democrats spent $300,000 to defeat me in 2018. $300,000. And the reason was because as a member of the legislature, I stood up and fought with other members of the Republican caucus who stood up and fought. And then I became the chairman in January 17, 2019. And I want you to know, I had no idea what I was walking into. No idea. The day after, or 2 days after, there was a Republican National Committee meeting in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Bernadette and I had to go because I was the newly elected chairman. And when I tell you, when I came back, everything was gone. There was no transition from one administration to another. They took everything. They took everything. Not only that, at the time, we had no idea that it was a planned effort to shut us down. And the reason I know that is because I had the documents to prove it. Now, my wife told me, Jim, don't read every document tonight. So I won't read you every document. But I want you to know that everything I tell you is based on a document. You're not going to hear speculation. You're not going to hear me say anything that isn't backed up by evidence. And I'm not a lawyer, but I know what I need to do to make sure that people understand just how bad it is. So when I come back in January, we start to get, figure it all out. What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to do it? And you could feel the opposition. The people that were there didn't want to talk to us. People that left didn't want to tell us. So I had a meeting with a guy named John Cook. John Cook, who I had no idea, I'd never met him before. But he said, let's go out to breakfast. So, breakfast to me is Dunkin' Donuts. He said, no, I want to meet you at the Fairmont Copley Plaza. Fairmont Copley Plaza. That maybe he lives there, I don't know. So I go in, and we sit down, and I started joking. I said, hey, John, the other night when I won, I heard this scream in the background. Was that you screaming how glad you were that I won? Or was that you letting me know you were coming after me? At the moment I said that, I had no idea that 4 years later, I now understand exactly what they were doing. They controlled the party. When I say they, John Cook was the primary decision maker for every dollar that was spent. Kirsten Hughes was the chair. She had nothing to do with who made the decisions. It was John Cook. And when we began to find out just how bad it was, it became apparent that this was all about money. All about money. The first thing that happened was, when I sat with Cook, it was in February, I had 3 invoices that were given to me, totaling $127,000. He put them on the table. He goes, "You gotta pay these." I said, "What are these 3 invoices?" He said, "One is for DBP LLC," which didn't mean anything to me. Another was for an entity called Conroy Strategies, Jim Conroy, Governor Baker's campaign manager. And the other one was for a guy named Will Kaiser, $40,000, Democratic operative. I said to him, I said, John, there's no way I'm paying these invoices. Unless you give me a scope of work, let me know what these people did, and then we'll put them into the payables. Well, they had already put them into the payables when I left. Unbeknownst to me, they had already put them into the payables. So Cook came in to meet me at the office in February, a couple weeks later, sat down across the table from me, and he said, "You're gonna pay those payables." Now, guys, at the time, when I first ran for the state rep, I was 57. By this time, I'm now 65. I've been in business since I was 21. I got this 40-year-old guy across from me. "You're gonna pay these." I said, "John, I'm not gonna pay." He said, "Listen, fundraisers can cause you nothing but trouble." That's what he told me. Fundraisers can cause... I said, "John, listen, I have what I call a 24-hour rule. When someone pisses me off as much as you do, I wait till tomorrow to talk to him." Okay? So Mr. Cook left, and I have never spoken to him since. Okay? So folks, what I want you to know right from the beginning, this was about money. Since 2013 through 2019, when I took office, Cook had given himself, through various entities, $1 million. $1 million. It's in the book. That didn't make sense to me. As a candidate that had run for office, when I first ran, nothing out of the party. Second time, nothing. Finally, in 18, when I did run and lost, the party actually did help me. I want to go on the record to say that. But that made no sense when I knew there were candidates out there who wasn't getting any money. So then, fast forward, and we get into July and August. And we find on one of the computers that was in storage, and Bernadette reminded me the other day, there was a bill that I was paying every month for $1,100. I didn't even know what it was. I kept saying, "We've got to find out what it was." There was a storage facility where they had some computers in. When we went and found the computers, we found out what they were doing. They had taken the data that belongs to the party. You get it? All the sales data that's been in the party for 10 years, they took and they left. And we found out later that in January, when I was in Albuquerque, a young man that worked under the Baker people sent Salesforce a letter saying, "Hey, here's the $12,500 we need for the data. The last check we gave you was in error. The last check they gave us was from the MassGOP." So they put together the scheme to try to convince Salesforce, which they did, that they owned the data for the MassGOP, the sales data.
Jim, maybe you should tell people what Salesforce is, they may not know the term.
Salesforce is a database which tracks just about everything. It knows everything about you. When you put in your name, how much they gave, when was the last time they gave money, who you donated to. That's what Salesforce was. A very important document for a party to have, especially with all the donors throughout the state. So what we found out when we started our whole research was that Salesforce, John Cook, had used Salesforce as his own personal database. In March of 2020, March of 2019, they raised $272,000 for an entity called Advantage. Advantage. I didn't know what Advantage was at the time. Well, during that same period of time, there was an entity opened up called Majority Independent PAC. Majority Independent PAC. Run by a guy out of Leominster who was an ally of Governor Baker. So what they did was they shifted all the funds that they would normally be raised from the party into this IPAC. How do we know it? Because when you took a look at the deposit of the initial deposits for the IPAC, $272,000 is exactly the same amount that's on their report from Salesforce. So that's the first thing we found out. Second thing that we found out is that they formed a second entity, and they named it Rally. It lacked the description. $347,500. What we know now that we didn't know then was Rally was part of the formation of the various limited liability companies that were formed. Okay? Rally and Advantage. So my good friend Bruce Chester is here. Say hello to Bruce.
Hey, Bruce.
Bruce ran for state representative twice. He ran for state representative twice. He ran in 2020 and he ran in 2022. He's an Iraqi war vet, totally committed to the principles of the Republican Party. And in this last election cycle, he lost 53 to 47. Very close race. That independent PAC that I just told you about spent $27,000 on his Democratic opponent. On his Democratic opponent. Governor Baker's PAC, led by John Cook, spent $27,000 to beat Bruce Chester in November of 2022. Is that any way to run an operation, folks?
No, at all.
Every single one of you people have been undermined by the people who have controlled this party for 40 years. That is why you're reading such nice things about me in the paper.
You gotta check you out and make sure you're good now.
You know, that was what I was
Please. So folks, the other entity that they formed, which I just told you about, also spent money. In 2020, there were state committee races, and companies and entities are allowed to run opponents. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? But this entity went after two particular members of the state committee, a man named Earl Shawley and a woman named Patricia St. Okay? And one of the flyers that they had called Earl Shawley a convicted felon. Said that he abused his kids. Okay? Earl Shawley filed suit. And as part of the discovery process, we found out that those flyers that were mailed on behalf of Sean Dooley, who was a state representative, were paid for by Red Massachusetts Grassroots LLC. Brian Wynn, Governor Baker's guy. You got it? Bernadette told me, stop saying got it. Of course they get it.
LLC is your freaking.
So folks, we've got two entities that were formed within 90 days of me becoming the chairman, and now we know what they were doing. They were doing work to help Democrats and destroy Republicans. People ask me, why is the Republican Party the way it is? Well, I would never have known it if I hadn't served in the legislature and I hadn't served as the chairman. But I'm telling you, this is why. This has gone on forever. Let's go back to Weld in 1990. Let's go back to Weld, 1990. Bill Weld got elected on the backs of conservatives. That's what happened in 1990. By the time he left, everyone knew that he was not a conservative. Romney, 2004, I believe it was, or 2002, gets elected. 2006, Deval Patrick gets elected. And then in 2014, Governor Baker gets elected. And the party has gone from a high water mark of 53 members of the legislature in 1990, when Bill Weld was elected, on the backs of the conservatives, to in 2010, there were 11 Republicans, 11 running for re-election in the House of Representatives. And I'm the divider. That's the story they want everyone to believe. It's Jim's fault. Listen, I'm the captain, I'm the chairman, it is my fault. I should have known this earlier. And we would have stopped it earlier. This party is worse than some of the other parties that are out there. They've done it all behind closed doors. They've done it all in the background, behind the curtain. 2020, I released this report to the FBI, the Federal Elections Commission, to Office of Campaign Finance, and to the federal prosecutors. And I was interviewed, at least twice. I can't go into any more than that, okay? My election for party chair was coming up on January 3rd, 2021. Got it? Sorry, Brent. January 3rd, 2021. See, I know these dates, and I want to make sure. I released this December 1st, 30 days earlier. On January 2nd, a man named Doug Bennett, who is the aide to the National Republican man in Massachusetts, Ron Kaufman, National Committee man for 30 years. Ron Kaufman's aide decides that he is going to attack me personally. How many of you have ever been called a pedophile? The day before my election for party chair, Doug Bennett, who we have all kinds of information, works for Ron Kaufman, starts a story on Facebook. Jim Lyons is a pedophile. Well, let me explain something to you so you know how much that hurt, okay? In 2008, my wife and I were tortured by our neighbors. Tortured. We had 2 sons. March 31st, there's a knock on the door, 2008. Social services are at the door. Mr. Lyons, there's rumors that you abuse your boys. The people that did that ended up in jail. But there was a big story about it in the paper. Doug Bennett used that article to say Jim Lyons was accused of being a pedophile. Accused. He didn't say falsely accused. He said he was accused of being a pedophile. That night before the election, my wife was in absolute tears. The same tears that she was in the night that they came to my house to try to take my kids away. That's the kind of people that are running this party. And there are people who are running for party chair that say that we have to stop the lawsuits. No, folks. What we have to do is uncover the truth. That's what we have to do. Uncover the truth. So now, after the election in January, all of a sudden there's this big activity about running, of creating these wards in South Boston. And I had no idea what was going on. And we were getting all these things in the mail. And so part of the process when you form a town committee or a ward committee is we check to see if the names add up. Well, what happened was the names all came back as not living at the addresses. I've got about 35 of these. These all came back in the mail, okay? Saying that person doesn't live there, this person doesn't live there. We had a woman send us an email saying that somebody that was doing this had forged her name for the documents. So I send out a letter saying, hey folks, we're gonna start over. We need to have a meeting, and we need to have people come to the meeting, we know who you are. right? Pretty reasonable stuff, right? On April the 19th, Nat Lee, an Asian American, sent a letter to the state committee that said that I was disbanding these wards because I was prejudiced against Asians and blacks.
I love
That's on April the 19th. You got April the 19th. April the 19th. What we now know is that Red Massachusetts Grassroots LLC, you got it? Sorry, Brent. That entity hired the lawyers to create a false narrative which they gave to the Globe. We have documents here that implicate Jim Conroy, Charlie Baker's campaign manager, Brian Wynn, one of his top executives, Matt Sisk, big ally of Ron Kaufman, and others, with the sole purpose of trying to destroy my reputation and my name. This is in April of 2021. April. And when I tell you, when you're in the middle of this stuff, you have no idea, why is this happening? What's going on? But nonetheless, you still don't understand. You just can't. You don't understand how it's all happening. So what happened next is even more incredible. Even more incredible. And I'm going to ask my friend Jeffrey Paquette, who ran for Congress, who, by the way, when he first met me, I don't think he liked me very much. But I'm going to ask Jeffrey to pick up the story in May of 2021. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Good evening. First off, I want to thank everybody in this room for voting for me, for voting for Bruce, Aaron, Jeff Deal, where'd Jeff go? Oh, there he is. And so, for all of the volunteers, all of the work that all of you guys put in. I cannot say thank you enough. So seriously, everything. And then before I go to the next thing, I do this now at every meeting. And so I want to make sure that I am able to say thank you to Lorraine, my campaign manager. Because our state committee people would not do their jobs. Lorraine didn't just have to run my campaign and be the district coordinator for Jeff Deal and stuff. She worked on basically, I think, 6 different campaigns, did all of the signs. My office had every candidate was running statewide or in District 2, my office was, where all the signs and everything went, everything got moved around and stuff. Lorraine coordinated all of it.
Wonder Woman.
And so she kept me going from 7 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week, 3 to 4 events every single day. She did not care that I was recovering from a stroke or learning how to talk. And so the next thing that I want to give you guys, and then I'll move off of Lorraine. And stuff. We had a situation having nothing to do with Massachusetts GOP and stuff in Shrewsbury and stuff. The children in Shrewsbury were told that the police officers were predators and that the black community was their prey. Police officers aren't allowed to speak. So anyway, some police officers got a hold of our campaign office. Obviously, Lorraine's a retired state police officer and stuff. And I went and held Shrewsbury accountable. Lorraine was in the audience. Obviously, she can't speak because she also worked for Shrewsbury Police Department. And stuff. Lorraine was given a choice. And I sat there going, oh dear, I'm not going to have a campaign manager anymore. That's okay. She's got to do her job. Lorraine is such a Republican. So this has nothing to do with me and stuff. She resigned her job so that she could run my campaign and be the district coordinator for Jeff Deal. And nobody knew she gave up her job. And let's not even into the fact that she donated to me every month. She would not let me give her money. Even trying to put gas in her truck is like pulling teeth. So again, I will be forever grateful to Lorraine and what she's done. She's one of my dear friends and stuff. But what she did for this party in District 2 and stuff, I just want everyone to know what she really did and how much she gave up to be able to do this for 2022. So Lorraine, thank you. So as you guys all know, because again, this is basically my district that's in this room and stuff, when I first started my campaign, we all know we had this horrible thing that had come out and stuff that we had a state committee member and stuff having a private conversation and stuff, and I was going to be the MC at an event up in Western Mass where I was also launching my campaign that day. And stuff, they tried to basically stop me from being that MC, and for the reason that that was done and stuff was because I was a gay man, that I was married, and that it sickened, by because everyone saw these emails, so this, like I said, this is my district, and stuff, that the individual was sickened that I had adopted my children, and stuff. So, move that ball forward. Jeff Deal, Jim Lyons, and myself were actively trying to work with that state committee member to solve the problem and stuff so that it never went public. This was never ever supposed to be exposed and stuff. What I didn't know was, I didn't know anybody from the Republican Party. I'm a business owner who said, I've had enough. And I stood up to run. I didn't ask anybody's permission and stuff. I needed to do what was right for Republicans, for my children. So I didn't run around going, do I need a kiss to be able to run? But I did know Mindy McKenzie, which is the regional state committee woman for the greater Worcester area in Shrewsbury, which is my town. So I went to her and said, hey Mindy, can you maybe chime in and help? I told her what happened and I shared the emails with her. Move that ball a couple of weeks forward and stuff. Mindy calls me out of the blue. Again, I've only spoken to her now for 20 minutes in a 4-year period. And stuff, she calls and asks me if the Boston Globe had called me. And I said, why would the Boston Globe call me? And so anyway, she rushed off the phone and I'm thinking to myself, they know I'm running. They're gonna run an article on me. Well, yes, they were gonna run an article. She leaked it to the press. And so that's how the Boston Globe found out about the circumstance. We ended up making national news off of this. The national chair, Ronna, had to speak up 3 different times in the Boston Herald trying to stop this and stuff, because this went really, really bad and stuff. Jeff was concerned that this was gonna do major damage to the party and stuff, because we literally had a problem. And then to make it worse, Holly Robichaud, which is Jeff Deal's old campaign manager, and many other people's, and stuff, she decided, or whoever put her up to it, that they were gonna put up a candidate to run against me to try to stop me and stuff. And what that candidate ended up doing was with another gentleman who is also an elected official and stuff, and I'm going to leave his name out for different reasons and stuff. Holly had him do the op research, and they were able to figure out, because obviously, and stuff, for all of you guys that are in here, most of you know my husband's story. Julian was trafficked to America with 2 other young girls from Colombia when he was 10 years old, and the girls were about the same age. And they were locked up in Texas for 5 years before they got away, being sexually trafficked. And stuff. So they brought that story out, put it out in Google, in the newspaper. They identified where our 9-year-old son was, where does he go to school, what's his schedule, what was my home address, which put Julian in an absolute panic. Not only that, never in Julian and Mai's life did we ever think we were gonna have to sit down and tell either one of our children, one is 20 years old, one is 9 years old, what had happened to their father. And so we were put through a lot. Our kids, no one was doing anything. We had people showing up at the house, so we had to have the Shrewsbury police coming by our house every few hours. As all you guys know, I'm a strong Second Amendment person. However, I've never owned a gun in my life. Now, I do own a gun now. I do have my parents. And now there are guns in my house. With two beautiful old German shepherds. So I figured if you don't get through the dogs, we'll get you on the other side. But anyway, and stuff, what we were able to figure out, and you know, we all know and stuff, you can look it up. Debbie Martell was that state committee member, and I got to meet her for the very first time in Worcester 2 nights ago. And she got to stand next to me, and we got to expose together that the work that was trying to be done quietly, that exposed all of this, I got to show Debbie who did this. The Mindy McKenzie's, the Janet Limbros, Hannah Kane, and we got to point at each and every one of them, because what we needed to show the audience was what our state committee people did. This was never about Debbie or myself. This was about a weapon to try to get Jim Lyons to resign. When that didn't work, remember, I don't know how much of you guys followed this, we had a big blowout in Marlboro. I think I had about 100 people there protesting the Mass GOP when that meeting was going on, and stuff, quite the night, and stuff. But when we go from, where am I? So from Marlboro, and we did that piece of it, this is when, if you guys all remember, the 13 angry donors, because obviously they weren't able to get rid of Jim because of what happened to me. So what they did was, they threatened the Mass GOP with $1 million donation. We will give the Mass GOP $1 million. And they did this in my name and my family's name and stuff, if he quits.
Jeff, you forgot to tell him that Bernadette said she'd take $500,000.
Okay. And so anyway, as we all know, they didn't make the $1 million thing, but I was so upset that they would again use my family and drag my children out into this story again. And stuff, I contacted all 13 of those people. I've never met them in my life. I don't know these people. Who are you to do this and to use my family's name? And if you people are all so wealthy, I'm the guy that you're writing this about. I'm running for Congress. Do you want to donate to my campaign? Do you want to help? Not one returned a call, not one returned a letter, not one returned an email. And I think, Lorraine, we tried, what, 6 times to contact all of them? Nothing. Again, this was not about me. This wasn't about Republicans. This was all about the weaponization to take down chairman to stop a lawsuit. And all Debbie Martell and myself were nothing more than pawns. Nobody cared. And my children, unfortunately, were the victims of this whole thing and stuff. And not only that, but after 15 years of daily therapy for my husband to recover from the things and stuff that happened to him, because of all of this, he ends up back in therapy because you gotta open up all the wounds again and face the public and stuff. We own child care centers in our district and in our area. Parents found out, like, this was just not okay. So the reason I'm going around with Jim and stuff is so that I can let everyone know it doesn't matter who the chairperson is. The current state committee members, including our own, like Smiley up here, these people have actively worked against the candidates that are running and stuff. They have called the donors and said, do not donate to the candidate, do not donate to the Mass GOP, donate to these PACs. And that's exactly what's been happening and stuff. So this is what I decided to do. Some retired state committee people that have been retired and stuff, they gave me documents from 2014 through 2020. I did not address 2022's election, although when I'm hearing your stories and stuff, I guess maybe we will pull 2022 into this and stuff. And here's where we're at. We're getting ready, once all of the work is done, to file 2 separate lawsuits. One is gonna be federal, for the federal candidates that ran. One is gonna be for the state, so that we can make our volunteers, our donors, and our candidates whole for the action of what these state committee members did to the candidates, did to the party, how they betrayed each and every one of you that are sitting here in this room. And stuff, Julian and I gave the attorneys the $25,000 retainer to get through this work and stuff. If it needs more money, we will give it. Once this is all put together, right now we're sitting on 152 at this point, statements or depositions, because it will go further once it goes to court. And what we're able to do right now is we've got donors that are saying, I was gonna give X money. This state committee person said, Jim's a pedophile, I'm just giving you this piece of it, right? Says he's a pedophile, don't give it to him, give it over here. Or, where we've brought this up twice now, Jeff Deal, when he was running for Senate, they went out and made a rumor and stuff, I don't know how many of you know it or don't, and stuff, that he was having an affair with his daughter's friend, these are high schoolers.
Oh, my goodness.
So, state committee, people, again, go to donors. We've been able to document so far one $10,000 donor and stuff that is willing to testify that that family did not make the donation to him because of what the state committee person said, and that they were directed not to give the money also to the MassGOP. So this is what I'm working on, because the whole purpose of this is, the only reason we have an election and we're in question that they're gonna try to fire him at the end of this month in a couple of weeks is because they want this lawsuit gone. Jim wants to get the donors' money back and take care of our candidates, so do I. Not only that, for me personally, I put $400,000 of my own money into this campaign. I never knew that my party was actively working against each and every one of you who were out busting your butts for us. Remember, we ran our campaign for 19 months, and most of you guys worked with us for 19 months. Same with Jeff. The two of us ran the longest campaigns in this particular group. All of you guys were with us. And they really screwed you. Here's what I need you to do. And Jeff would ask the same thing and stuff is, I need you to pick up the phone over the next 2 weeks. Call everybody that you can. Call every single state committee person. Just go on the MassGOP. You'll get their phone numbers, their emails. Blow their phones up. Blow their emails up. And demand that they vote, and that one, no matter who gets elected, this lawsuit does not go away, but that you want to give Jim one more year, because at the end of the day, ask yourself, if you took over a business and on your first day, all the computers have been removed, all the data is gone, they shut your bank accounts down, your rent checks are bouncing, etc., etc. I think any one of us is going to be a little bit angry and stuff, and a little bit probably spewing out of the mouth and stuff. Who wouldn't be? And stuff. It's common sense. Our problem is with our state committee people and stuff, and I'm not saying all of them. We all know who the 30 or 34 of them are. If you really want to know the ones, it's the same 29 that send a letter every week down to DC complaining about Jim and stuff. So, but please, bang those phones and demand and stuff that these guys do things, and that really at the end of the day, they don't run again. The last thing I'm gonna wrap up with is, because of what was done to my family, so I'm gonna start with Julian first. This is principle. So it's not about money. And so this is strictly principle. You cannot go out and harm someone's children and think that you're gonna get away with it. So Julian put up the first 100,000, I'm matching his 100,000. We're putting up $200,000 to go after these state committee members when they come up for election. Because Bruce, Jeff, myself, none of us can win. Thank you. None of us can win our elections because of what these state committee people did. But that's not in the newspapers. That's not on Howie Carr. That's not Jessica Machado running her mouth. And so they don't want to talk about that. They want to sweep it under the rug and pretend what they did to all of us for 8 years. Didn't happen. And so I need all of you guys, we need to stand up, just like as hard as we fought in the last 19 months for this election. Payback is a bitch, and we need to hold these people accountable, please.
What you just heard from Jeff is what we know, right? And what you're hearing from me is what we know. What we don't know is what else they've done, all right? But remember now, it's about money. So just let me give you a highlight film of what they did with this. We have a 28 and a 29-year-old son, 2 boys, okay? And in 2017 and 2018, okay, the Mass Republican Party, through this guy, John Cook, set up these different entities, LLC entities. And they took money from the party to the tune of $600,000 into an entity controlled, supposedly, by a 27-year-old kid. Does anybody believe that? I don't believe it. They took $300,000 out of that account and gave it to a young woman. $900,000. In addition, they spent $275,000 on travel. A lot of travel. They spent $164,000 on parking. They spent $90,000 on food. And in the month of December, in 2018, after the election, they spent $10,000 in 1 week at the Capitol Grill in gift certificates. If you think these people care about what you did, knocking on doors, calling your friends, and trying to get elected people who believe in what we believe in, freedom, liberty, personal responsibility, you're not getting this. These people don't care. And that's where we are within this party. And what's so important about this meeting tonight, in addition to what Jeffrey just said, is we have 3 candidates in here that took and put their lives on hold, to go out and fight for the principles. Bruce Chester, Aaron Packard, and Colin Miller. 3 of them. Every day they were doing something. I would hear a call, I would talk to them almost every week. They were out doing something. Listen to what that Baker pack did for them.
Nothing.
I'm retired.
Jonathan Zlotnick is the state representative up in Garden. Jonathan Zlotnick defeated Bruce Chester by a little over 1,000 votes. Governor Baker's PAC spent $27,000 to defeat that man right there. Is that a way to build a party?
No.
Aaron Packard lost by a little over 2,000 votes. Governor Baker's PAC spent $18,549 to beat that man. Colin Miller lost by a little over 2,200 votes, and they spent over $5,000 trying to beat that lady. Folks, the party's broken. The party's broken. The party's divided, but we're only divided because we're allowing it to happen. We have to stand up and tell these people enough is enough. And what these people did continued through 2021 into 2022. They decided, because Governor Baker wanted a woman to take over a seat as a state committee woman who hadn't got 50 signatures to get her name on the ballot. That I was supposed to do what they wanted me to do. Now, there was an election in March of 2020. Nobody got enough votes to get on the ballot. Our bylaws say, have a caucus, elect a member, and have the committee confirm it, all right? In November, we had a state committee meeting. We determined that there was going to be a caucus for the seat that this woman, who Baker decided he wanted to support. The caucus was on December the 19th, and this woman, Eleanor Green, was duly elected as a member of the state committee. The same lawyers that represented the Brian Wynn entity to call me a racist and a bigot are the same lawyers that defended this woman in a recount. The same woman. Governor Baker gave $0 from 19 till today to the Republican Party. Want to know how much money he spent to try to elect a woman that couldn't get 50 signatures to get her name on the ballot? You want to know how much money he spent? $100,000 out of his campaign. Everybody that donates to these parties has to know this. Has to know that. $100,000. So then it continues. They come up with a new strategy. The team. Brian Wynn, Jim Conroy, Matt Sisk, Ron Kaufman. There's another couple of names in there that I'm not going to get into right now. Decided we're going to boycott the state committee. We're going to really make Lyons look like an idiot. We're going to not show up and blame him. So they did that on November the 30th, 2021. They didn't show up. They didn't show up. There was one other time I think they didn't show up. So we go into the new year, and we have a budget that we put together every year, and it's passed every year. And if it isn't passed, you operate until it is passed, okay? We have a quorum established. We passed the budget. This treasurer, Patrick Crowley, a member of the team, through his own deposition testimony, says he's a member of the team who decided that if I didn't do what they told me to do, they were going to walk out of the meeting and shut down the bank account of your party. And that's exactly what they did on February 1st.
Is that legal?
It's an unlawful act. On February the 1st, I get a call from Elizabeth. Jim, I can't use the credit card. It just must be a mistake. I get a call from the bank. You bounced your rent check.
Yeah.
I call Patrick Crowley on the phone. I am not talking to you. Hung up the phone. The treasurer, who has a fiduciary duty and be responsible for the money that you people donated to the party, shut it down. Because he was unhappy. He was unhappy. That moment, it became clear to me that these people weren't going to stop. They just weren't going to stop. So I got together with our attorney, and we filed a lawsuit. Patrick Crowley, in April, right before our convention, decides that he's going to shut down the password to our OCPF finance accounts to make us look bad again. In October 10th of this year, I get an email from Patrick Crowley at 9 o'clock at night. It's got a picture. All it is a picture. Him holding an AK-47.
Oh, no. No.
Folks, let me tell you something. What these people have done to our party is not going to be held without being accounted for. And I need every single one of you to help me with this. You see, there's someone running for chair on the other side who is trying to protect the team. The team, okay? So we're adding another class to this lawsuit. We're intervening on behalf of the Republican town committees and city committees throughout the state. Our attorneys will have a draft ready by the weekend. I'm going to send that draft to every single one of you. As long as you're a Republican and a member of a town committee. And if you're not a member of a town committee, join one. And I'm asking you to join against these people. These people must be stopped. Their goal is to shut down the lawsuit. The woman that's running against me the other day told me in no uncertain terms that that's what she's going to do. She also told me the reason they shut down the bank account was because they thought I would cave. Well, folks, none of you have caved. None of you have caved. Donald Trump never caved. And I'm going to tell you right now, we need every one of you to help us do this. We have to stand united against the corruption that is deep within our party. I need your help to do this. I cannot do it alone. Tonight we've got at least 50, 60 people here. Worcester the other night, 75 to 80. Attleboro last night, 40. And when I saw the people who came out that are just so aggravated about where we are. The ballot questions. The ballot questions are so important to what we're trying to do. You all know that many of you were involved in the ballot initiative drive. And what we now know is that there are so many cities and towns in this Commonwealth that we can win because of that ballot question. We know that. Right here in this county alone, I don't know what I do with it. I know.
Where's my notes?
There's about 75 cities and towns, and I think there's 62 of them with a no on question for one and one big. Those are the towns that we need to organize, and we need to get people running for office. Look, first time I ran for office, I was 22 years old. First election I was involved in, my cousin was 18. Him and I were the same age. He was the youngest person ever elected in America, ever elected in America. Folks, we need people to stand up against our party so we can take on the crazy radicals on the left who are just trying to destroy our country. And you guys have to stay involved. And the reason I am doing this is so each one of you understand that we have been screwed in no uncertain terms. These people have taken their donors' money and they've wasted it. And they've tried to destroy it. Why should anybody who runs to be the party chair be called a pedophile, a racist, a bigot, and a criminal?
No.
You can call me all the things you want. Hey, Jim, I don't like your pro-life position. Hey, Jim, I don't like your 2A position. A bigot, a racist, and a pedophile? Those people have to be held accountable. And
Yes,
damn
they
it,
do.
I
Yes,
am
they
going to
do.
hold them accountable
Yes,
with
they
your
do.
help.
You're here.
So how are we going to do it, guys? You all know what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you all an email. I'm going to send you a request. I'm going to send you. We've already raised in one day $30,000 for this legal defense fund. Our goal is to raise $150,000. There'll be no financial liability to anybody that adds to the lawsuit. It's a legal defense fund that we set up today. So how do we move forward as a party? Well, first thing, you got to know what the truth is, right? And now you know the truth. If anybody wants to question that and tell me that I'm wrong, stand up and tell me. Anybody? Anybody want to say, Jim, you're crazy? Oh, wait, no, that's a different question. That's a different question. Jim, you're crazy. My wife said, well, let's not go
I know,
there.
I've always been called.
That's not.
Why didn't you
Big
tell
mouth.
us sooner?
Why didn't I tell us sooner? Because I didn't know. I didn't get the documents. The documents are what prove what happened. I didn't know. I wish I could have. How's that?
So the documents came after February? when you were
That's
locked
right,
out of
exactly.
the account?
No, all of the documents, we've also had this, what we call this, yes, discovery. We've subpoenaed records. So after we filed the lawsuit is when we begin to get the picture. Exactly right, yes. Yes. Yes, I'm sorry, I can't see you.
I got a question on our district commissioners. At election time, I received...
Speak up.
Excuse me, I got the throat.
That's all right.
At election
Look,
time...
Can I ask you to do me a favor? When I'm finished, I'll open it up for questions.
All right.
All right, thank you. But before I get into the part of where we go forward, I do want to ask my good friend Bruce Justin to step up here and say a few words, because I met Bruce 4 years ago now, 2020. just 2 years, 2.5 years ago. And he stood up and fought then, and I couldn't believe it when I saw it, that they spent that money. I just couldn't believe it. Let's hear it from my friend.
I had planned to be part of my hometown. I'm from Gardner, okay? I actually grew up in this area, but I live in Gardner now. I'm telling you, the RCCs in the towns are the lifeblood of getting this stuff straightened out. I'm ex-military, so I understand when Jim went after the documents, what do we say? No job is done until the paperwork's done, okay? So, I'm actually pretty astonished that it went that deep. Yeah, I was pissed that I lost, because I have a very large ego. But what's even tougher for me is the fact that, as Jim had said, we busted our rear ends. I was out every week, standing out, campaigning. We were door knocking. I was driving around the state. I actually went down to support Rayla Campbell down in East Bridgewater. Now, there's two things about that that are important, okay? First of all, I believe in unity, okay? Not only am I ex-military, I'm also an Iraq War veteran. You want to talk about having somebody... I'm telling you what, we have to build unity, okay? And it's got to start here. We got to clean house, okay? I would not be here if it wasn't for two people in this room. That's Jim Lyons and that's Elizabeth Roots. Keep me honest. Clap for me, clap for her. She does all that nasty, stupid stuff that we don't want to do behind the scenes. So don't ever take that for granted, okay? But here's my problem. I have a very unique problem, and you need to look at this. All you RCC, how many ward chairmen do I have? If you're not a ward chairman,
He's a town chair.
Town chair? Okay. Ward chairman, town chairman, okay. We have 5 wards in Gardner. We had 3 wards put together. Much like in the larger picture of Mass, we have this corruption in Gardner. My opponent, the mayor of Gardner, and the former mayor of Gardner are all colluding. The mayor of Gardner and the former mayor of Gardner was at one point were Republicans. I kid you not, if you don't know this man here, this man was the backbone of this area as far as community. This is Frank Ardinger, okay? He was the very first person. He's trying to get, Mark Hawks is the former mayor, he's trying to get his job. He found 2 other people to take the other wards in Gardner, and he shut us down. I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this yet. Matter of fact, Elizabeth sent me an email. Do you know how to get a hold of these guys? I'm like, who? I had no idea. We met at my apartment building. The other 3 wards, we were putting this thing together. So, if you care about what Jim is doing, we want to build this momentum. We've got to build a large team. You got to clean house. You got to try to either work with those people or figure out a way to make this work. Okay? Many hands make light work. We all have to bind together, otherwise this state is doomed. I've already had people tell me that.
Get that right.
Okay? My brother lives in Texas. Okay? I'm the youngest of 5. As far as I know, he's the only other conservative because we talked about this. He said something interesting to me from Texas. Now, he's a diehard New Englander. He's still a Patriots fan down there and all that. But he had said that the Democrats seemed awfully relaxed all of you guys understand how much work we did here, okay? When I lost, I'm sure Aaron felt the same way, Jeff, we're sort of scratching our heads going, something smells. Now we know why.
That was a nice way of putting it, Bruce.
I have to be nice, okay? All right, guys, it's not gonna happen unless we make it happen, okay? I have a unique perspective because I spent a year in a third world country where people couldn't vote, where people couldn't have a way to protect themselves. They couldn't even go down to the store. I ran a dining facility. I had a driver killed, driving nothing but soda. They wanted the truck, they killed the man for it because there was no law enforcement. There's no way for that guy to protect himself. Yes, it will get that bad if we don't do something now. I'm urging you, I am pleading you, I am begging you, I don't beg. I am pleading with you, okay? We're gonna go home tonight, we're gonna go to bed, we're gonna get up, we're gonna go to work tomorrow, we're gonna do whatever, okay? I've got notes, okay? Say something. Interesting, no, I'll end this. I was out door knocking, and I realized I was in my opponent's neighborhood. And I'm not trying to make fun of him. I have nothing personally against the guy, other than he's useless. But he was walking up the street because it was near the supermarket. And I said, hey, I don't think we've actually formally met. Oh, yeah, I met you at the inauguration of our boy mayor. Interestingly enough, we had a decent exchange, but he didn't stop walking. How many of you, when somebody's walking and talking to you, do you actually stop or do you keep walking? You stop and you talk, don't you? I didn't understand the feeling I had. I do now. He knew. Dix was in. He was screwed. Okay? I don't know about y'all. My pride ain't gonna allow that anymore. We have to band together as good conservatives. Okay. Thank you.
So folks, as my good friend Bruce Chester just pointed out, we have to band together. We're not the dividers. We are the people that are trying to unify our party. That's why you're all out here tonight. And there's another person I'm going to ask to speak who's done nothing other than try to unify this party since I'm done. And he's our candidate for governor. Where is he? Just here.
Hey, thank you all for coming out here tonight. First of all, I know it's Wednesday night. We got a lot of better things to do than hear about the problems to MassGOP. But looking around the room, I see so many people that have gotten involved, either ran or supported. By the way, Andy, thank you for having the event here today at the club. I really appreciate that. And the Fitchburg RTC, Mary and Ray and everybody where's Mary? There you are. Sorry, my glasses are over here. You guys have been so welcoming. Back when I was doing the gas tax ballot question, running for all different offices, you guys were so welcoming. You had me on your shows, your cable access shows. That's the kind of work that really should be rewarded with a win at some point, right? And yet, we've been robbed of wins time and time again. And when we did get a Republican, we found out he really wasn't a Republican when he was in office, right? And so, as Jim laid the case out, this has been as bad, if not worse, than when Bill Weld was in and basically drove our party down. We are now at a point where we have 3 state senators and our House of Representatives is going down and down further. We can't get anybody elected anymore. In fact, we're not even playing in the right game anymore. Early voting means that a month before Election Day is when votes actually start, and our primaries end a month before that. So you have a month to try to turn around a party and unify it and get it to vote for you. And it's very, very hard. So I just want to tell you my quick story because I served with Jim in the House of Representatives for 8 years. And we both came in 2010, the year when the Tea Party helped get a bunch of people who probably shouldn't have won in because there was that extra momentum to get us into office. And that was a groundswell of people that were tired of what was going on in Washington and in Massachusetts. We had a lot of people to push a few of us who'd never been involved before. Jim had been, but I hadn't, into office so we could do the right thing. Because that's why I ran. I was 40 years old. You probably heard this story a million times. I did not intend to make it a career of running for office or serving in office. I just wanted to go up to Beacon Hill and try to make it work for the people in my towns, my family, and maybe even for Massachusetts, right? So I gotta tell you these stories just so that you understand why it's so important now to take back control or keep control of the state committee. Because I didn't realize how much the state committee dictates what happens on Beacon Hill and within the Republican caucuses there in the House and Senate, okay? On top of that, they don't just affect politics on Beacon Hill. The state committee affects politics in Washington. When the Donald Trump campaign, when I was the only Republican to support him, I can tell you the work the state committee did to try to undermine Trump was incredible. And I'll tell you a little bit about it now, but that's, again, the reason why we have to have people run for state committee to replace the people who are working actively against putting America and Massachusetts and you first. That's one. Two, we need to make sure that whoever the chair is in the next few weeks when we elect a new chairperson, we need to make sure that that chair is going to continue the effort of purging the people from this state who will claim they're Republicans but work to undermine Republicans in every single election cycle and take away our money and then endorse against us. Endorse our opponents. Endorse our opponents. The guy who ran against Jim Lyons for chairman back in 2020 had a picture with Maura Healey with his head on her head as if they're lovers, for God's sakes. Sean Dooley, if you're watching, Sean, thanks so much for all the support. Okay, and by the way, Sean's been rewarded with he's now a civil service commissioner. Baker appointed that to him right before he left office. So glad you got your hack job, Sean. Yeah. Anyway, let me just tell you real quickly. So again, I knew nothing about politics when I ran in 2010. I just ran against a guy who wasn't doing anything up on Beacon Hill except taking care of his friends. So I ended up winning in my district. It's Abington, Whitman, East Bridgewater, great little towns on the South Shore area. And I got into office and I went up to Beacon Hill and right off the bat, like one of the first bills that came up was this probation bill. And you guys remember the probation department was getting crucified because they were being padded with patronage jobs. All these people were getting hired so long as they donated to Democrats, right? So they actually, was interesting, there was a federal case against them and they were actually prosecuted. So in order to correct the problem, they did this probation department bill. And I remember on a Wednesday, we had a voting session, and what they do is they said, no more hiring unless the person is qualified, they have their application put in writing, and no phone calls by lawmakers to recommend them to these jobs. That's going to be the way that they're going to prevent this for the future. We were told by our minority leader, Brad Jones, Brad, if you're watching, you know this is the truth. Brad Jones told us, if there's any changes in the Senate version of the bill, I'll let you know, otherwise we're going to let it pass through informal session on Thursday. What happens is everybody comes from across the state on a Wednesday, we vote on it, and then again, they don't want people to come from Pittsfield if they don't have to drive all the way to Boston the next day to have to do it. So they can do informal session approval if we all agree on that. We said, okay, great, if there's no changes, we will let that go through. I remember that morning, on Thursday morning, I was up at Beacon Hill, again, just getting some constituent work done, and I got the email in that showed the changes. They were going to allow phone calls from legislators to make these recommendations, non-recorded phone calls. Part of the problem with patronage hiring, there would be no record of who told somebody to give them that job, right? So I went immediately to the chamber. You know who else met me in the chamber at the time? This guy, Jim Lyons. Jim saw the same email and happened to be at the State House at the same time. We went into the chamber and immediately Republicans and Democrats that were in there in that informal session ran up to him and said, if you try to stop this bill, you will never get another bill passed but in your whole time here up on Beacon Hill. They threatened us at that time. That was the first and last time I didn't do what my conscience said. I should have tried to hold up that bill. I didn't realize that that would be a pattern of behavior by Republicans and Democrats, and it continues to this day, okay? So, once I learned what was going on and started to wake up to it early on, I decided I was not with the program there up on Beacon Hill, and that's a real red flag for those people. So back in 2014, you guys remember the gas tax ballot question we won with, right? Well, earlier, a guy named Paul Frost, who's a state representative, you may know him. Paul Frost is also a state committee man. Paul Frost sent me an email back at the time saying, don't go forward with the gas tax ballot question. Paul, if you're watching, you sent that email. I've got a record of it. Happy to show it to you anytime you want. You can't dispute that. Paul Frost made sure that he let me know what leadership was thinking. Don't do the gas tax ballot question. Bill, the Democrats have already passed this. You're only going to anger them. You know, our job is not to fight them up here. It's to win the battles when we can. Well, if you have that kind of attitude, you'll never win anything if you're not willing to stand up. So I went ahead and did that. And guess what? We won that issue. As you guys remember, and Charlie Baker endorsed the position and got in. And guess what? My reward, as I think you guys have heard before, was I was kicked off of the Ways and Means Committee, which I'd been on for 4 years. I was kicked off. Kay Campanelli, who just ran for lieutenant governor, was so proud to tell everybody during this last election cycle, when she was running with Chris Doty, so proud to say that she filled my slot when I was kicked off of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm so proud. Kate, so proud that you filled in and are so happy for the reason I was kicked off, right? Doing the right thing. So anyway.
That's why she failed.
What's that?
That's why she lost.
Well, yeah, whatever. Karma. Yeah. So anyway, those are just a couple stories early on. But the other thing too is when I decided to endorse Donald Trump in 2015, late 2015, early 2016, obviously that wasn't something that Charlie Baker, then Governor Baker, was too fond of, right? So all of a sudden, now I'm persona non grata with our new sitting governor, right? Not only do I have enemies within my own House Republican chamber, but I also have the enemy with the governor. In 2015, I ran for state senate because somebody who had passed away, state senator passed away. It was a special election. It was a 3-month election cycle, 3 months, right? I wasn't going to run unless I had support of the governor, so I talked to him in person. He said he would support me. Charlie, if you're watching, you remember this. I was in your office. And then my wife said she would not let me run unless she got commitment from Charlie Baker. They didn't get a chance to meet, but he did call her on her phone and said, what'd you say, Charlie, that you would support me in the race, right? So anyway, about halfway through the race, I get an interview, and then I see it in the Boston Globe. This article comes out and says, they asked Charlie, are you going to support the Deal campaign for state senate? And Charlie tells the paper, I don't know, he hasn't asked me yet. Now it's a 3-month cycle, and we're halfway through that. What do you think that does to the district and to everybody who is trying to support me, right? It makes everybody go, oh, the governor's not with him. Obviously, they send the signals that they don't want you in, okay? So that's another time when I woke up about Charlie Baker, the guy that I supported in 10 and in 14, and then he does this. But then, let me just relate it back to state committee. When Donald Trump became the nominee, okay, we actually had those, you guys remember the delegate selection caucuses? We had 9 congressional districts, right? You get to pick 3 delegates and 3 alternates that were going to go to Cleveland to make sure that we affirmed Donald Trump as our nominee for president, right? Well, what ends up happening, and you guys don't know this, because I didn't know this, was that you not only elect those 27 delegates, and we got I think just about every single one of them was a pro-Trump delegate, a true pro-Trump America First delegate out there in the field, okay? But then what happens is they go to the state committee and they fill in the remainder of the open delegate slots with state committee members. And guess who gets picked as state committee members? And by the way, who outnumbers the 27 at-large delegates that get selected? They become the state committee members who are anti-Trump. So what we had was never-Trumpers like Matt Sisk, who were picked, but I objected to that, and he was not ultimately, he was taken off that selection, but they filled it with plenty of never-Trump folks who basically went down to Cleveland and made sure that Ron Kaufman became the delegate president, so that Ron got to negotiate directly with the presidential campaign. So when we got back from Cleveland, that's when the rumor came out. That's when Ron Kaufman had his lawyer, Vince DeVito, put out an email and a letter saying that I was actually never co-chair of the Trump campaign. And that's where Sheba picked that little nugget up from Vince DeVito and tried to run around the state in 2018 when I ran for Senate saying, I had never, I was a fake Trumper, and all that, didn't shake his hand, all that baloney, right? Anyway, the point is, that is the work that the state committee does to try to keep anybody who's trying to put America first, Massachusetts first. That's what they do to try to scrape you off the political scene. But what you guys did in 2018 was to actually make me the U.S. Senate nominee, and I thank you so much for that, because I beat Beth Lindstrom, a never-Trumper, and John Kingston, a never-Trumper, so that at least we had somebody on the state top race, other than Governor Baker, top race talking about our values. Charlie Baker obviously didn't want that race to be at all about Donald Trump and the pro-America values. In fact, Charlie Baker ran TV ads throughout the remainder of the final few months with Democrat mayors across the state. He drove out Democrats in droves because he knew they were going to vote for him, right? Because he was anti-Trump. So anyway, we didn't win the 2018 race against Elizabeth Warren. And I actually thought after that, I couldn't put myself, my family, you guys through another cycle like that. And then the pandemic hit, and Charlie Baker did everything he did to basically shut our businesses down, take our freedoms away, force vaccinations on us, put questionable material in front of our children. You guys all remember all the issues we talked about, right? And I said, okay, I'm the only one who can beat Charlie in a primary. I'm going to do this, right? So I ended up deciding to make the run. I announced not too far from here, right out in Western Massachusetts is where I announced. You were there, Jeff. And we just ran a campaign where we were going to, again, try to make sure that the people knew that Massachusetts issues are important, and that Maura Healey was the wrong person to lead the state. Okay, but again, the Republican Party, or the governor, did nothing to help us, obviously, at that time. And everybody down the line worked against us. And that's the problem. We can't unify. So when Chris Doty lost in the primary to me, I took him out to lunch. I even paid for it, because he had just spent $2.5 million. Chris, please, I can show everybody the receipt. I took you out to lunch, and you said you would not endorse me and help unify this party, right? And yet, all the state committee members who said, we need a primary so we can get exposure, and then, we should unify. I'll tell you what, if I had lost that primary, they would have had my head if I did not endorse Chris Doty and make sure that we unify the party. And I would have done that, because we have to. Any Republican is better than the Democrats they're putting up to lead our state, okay? But the problem is, nobody is held accountable, and these never-Trumpers that are still on state committee, and it's just not never-Trump, they really, it goes way, way back. This is not just about Donald Trump. This is about using government to pad their own pockets, and we all basically pay the price, and our freedom is what's at stake at this point. So again, I'm just out here to tell you the truth. I'm here to back up what Jim is saying, to make sure that you know he is telling the absolute, God's honest truth, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end if you guys have them. But I just will say this, please, after tonight, please spread the word about what needs to be done. Please run for state committee if you know, if your district, I'm sure you guys know who your state committee people are, if they're good or if they're bad. Make sure you replace the bad ones, and make sure that for the future, that state committee becomes a body that supports candidates instead of just trying to drag them down. One other quick thing. You guys remember a woman named Karen Anderson from, I think it was like the Orange area?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You remember Karen, right?
Oh, yeah.
So in 2014, I remember endorsing 6 candidates for state representative. We wanted to get rid of Brad Jones. I told you about Brad Jones earlier. We wanted to replace him as the minority leader. We needed about 6 or 8 new state reps that would come in and vote to replace him. Okay, we had the numbers, just enough numbers to potentially replace him. The state party and the PACs, the Baker PACs, spent all that money to defeat people like Karen Anderson, who would have come in and tried to actually get rid of that bad minority leader. And there was 6 of them that I endorsed. All 6 of them were defeated, thanks to the efforts of the state committee at the time, which was against us. And then again, let me fast forward, 2018, I paid my $25,000 convention fee to go to the convention against Beth Lindstrom and John Kingston. So that's $75,000 the state party collected at the time for that U.S. Senate race. Do you know how much they invested once the primary was over to help me out? Zero. They gave my campaign in 2018 $0 to fight Elizabeth Warren. Folks, I've gone from that low-level state rep all the way to U.S. Senate and governor's candidate, and the Republican Party is what's defeated me every single time before we even get to Election Day against the Democrats. We've got to change things, and I hope that, again, Jim was able to follow through with this lawsuit, and that whoever the chair is going forward continues with the work to purge the party of people who are trying to drive our party into the ground. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. So how do we move forward? All right, everyone, we're here. We've identified, I think everyone clearly sees that there's a problem within the party. There's no question about it. So I think Jeff just mentioned it, and I completely agree with him. It's the grassroots. We have to continue to organize at the grassroots level. We have to get grassroots folks involved in fundraising at the local level. $100, $50, $200. So it's controlled locally. I'm a big believer in local control. We also have to use local control among our Republican town committees. We have to have outreach to what we call low propensity Republicans and independents, particularly in conservative leaning districts. There are so many people who we've identified through this great data that we have, who we call low propensity Republicans. And the reason many of these people don't vote for us in Massachusetts, because they don't even know what we stand for. They don't know what we stand for. And that's why we have to be totally unafraid of what we stand for and stand up for it. We have to recruit local candidates for local office who stand for Republican principles. I was at a meeting the other night, and the state committee woman is sitting at the table, and they're telling people, don't let people know you're a Republican. That's the message that they wanted people to hear. That's our state committee. Folks, we have to stand proudly for what we believe in. We have to highlight successful Republican town committees. This place in Dayton, I got a chance to meet these folks a couple of years ago. About 6 years ago, there were 4 members of the Dayton Republican Town Committee. 4. Tom Gallucci decided that he was going to stand strong on the issues that we believe in, that we've already talked about. They now have a full slate of 35, and they've elected at least 6 or 8 Republicans within the town of Dayton. The reason that Dayton is so important in how I want you to look at things is Dayton is also a state rep district that's connected to Somerset and Swansea, okay? That district has been represented by a Democrat for 18 years. 18 years. Now, Jeff alluded to the fact that Republicans and Democrats, they don't want to run against each other, because if you run against me, I'll run someone against you. So this is a woman, liberal Democrat, in a conservative district for 18 years. We finally convinced this young man to run on stickers. He got on the ballot. Jimmy Davidson gave us the guy. He was a veteran. He gets on the ballot, doesn't have a lot of money. He runs against this woman who's been there for 18 years and never had an opponent, and he loses 53 to 47. First time a Republican candidate has run in that district in 18 years. And that started with the fact that the Dayton RTC is working with Somerset and working with Swansea. So we want to regionalize our efforts within state rep and state senate districts. We want to promote a consistent message of lower taxes, small government, and strong family values. We need to aggressively fight this woke agenda. As Governor DeSantis said at his inauguration speech, they are coming for our kids. And young women have to step up and run for office. Old women, young men, and old men. You gotta get in the fight. We gotta give a message. And if you lose, it doesn't matter. In 2006, I hadn't been involved politically in Andover, other than maybe a couple of town meetings, right? A guy knocks on my door in September. He says, Jimmy, I didn't even see you. He knocks on my door and says, I understand that you want to help someone run for office. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to help you. So we went through the issues, you know, all the issues that I agreed on. His name was Lonnie Brennan, he's sitting right there, broadside. What happened was Lonnie got 42% of the vote in 2006. And then he called me again and says, I'm gonna run in 2008. I said, okay, you got like 43, 44% of the vote. Well, Bernadette and I got to know everybody on the teams in the different towns. So unfortunately, Lonnie couldn't run in 2010. So I got a phone call and said, hey, Jim, we gotta get a candidate for the state rep seat. Now, I had been involved in 6 and 8, and I said, yeah, whatever you need, we're happy to help. No, we want you to run. I said, there's no way, I can't do it. You know, my kids, it's that. No, we want you to run. I looked at my bride and I said, I was 57 years old at the time. I said, Bernadette, what do you think? She said, you're not getting any younger. Well, folks, I'm not getting any younger now either. But I want everyone in this room to know it doesn't matter. If we love our country, and everyone here does, we have to get in the fight. If we lose, so what? We're standing up for the principles that we believe in. That's part of our system. You all saw it on full display in DC last week. People were getting upset that 20 people were saying, hey, we don't like this guy. It couldn't have been better as far as I'm concerned. Because what we need is people to stand up for our principles. And those people came together and they're better off today because of it in that caucus. We have to hold our elected Republicans accountable. And I'll tell you, I'm going to do this job hopefully for 1 more year, and then I know what I have to do. I am going to work tirelessly to build conservative networks across this state and hold Republicans accountable. We have to prioritize working to elect strong leaders, not these go-along to get along types. We just can't do it anymore. It just can't be done. We have to continue the election integrity efforts that began 2 years ago. I want to point to one of our state committee members that's here tonight, Kathleen Litz, for all of the efforts that she has And one thing that we have to talk about when it comes to election integrity, right? It's kind of like in basketball. When the three-point shot became part of the game, you had to figure out how to do it, right? You had to figure out how to take a three-pointer. We have to also figure out how to win with mail-in voting. It's here to stay. We have to become better than they are. We can complain about election integrity. We can continue the fight the way Kathy's continuing the fight. But we also have to be competitive on the mail-in voting side. It's an absolute priority. And in small districts, the impact that we can have with a small group of people is going to be enormous. We have to reach out to the Latino and Black communities. These folks believe in our values. They believe in everything we believe in. We've just done a terrible job bringing them over. We have to bring them to us. We have to go where they are. And we have to be unafraid to talk about what we believe in. Folks, it's a new beginning in Massachusetts. It's a new beginning. We have an opportunity to work over the next 8 years to increase our ranks at the grassroots level, and to increase our ranks at the elected level, and to increase our ranks on weekend level. 4 years from now, people in Massachusetts are going to be so upset about where this state is. We have the most radical, aggressive, crazy Democrat leading this state. Make no mistake about it. That is a radical person that wants to change the way you think. We can't let them do that. What happened in 2010 is only the beginning. We went from 11 running for re-election to 34 in the House. By the time Baker got elected in 14, we had it up to 36, and we've gone from 36 now down to 25. That's because we need to continue to promote what we believe in. Not just say, oh yeah, he's a Republican, not hold him accountable. All right? He won, Charlie Baker won by less than 1%. 40,000 votes on the backs of conservatives. In the 4 years that we served with him, we supported every single one of Charlie's fiscal policies. When he vetoed something, we supported it. 18 to 22, everyone saw what happened. Folks, I want to thank you. If you have any questions, I hope that we've kind of given you a view of what we're trying to do. One thing before I finish, and I'll be happy to answer the question, is I need you to sign on to my lawsuit. I need your help. There's no financial. We are setting up a separate class because every RTC has been damaged. We are going after damages. What Jeffrey told you about that happened in late May, we had 3 fundraisers planned. Ben Crenshaw was coming to my house on June 20th, Father's Day. Jeffrey told the story the other day that because of what they said about me, the log cabin Republicans put all kinds of pressure on Ben Crenshaw not to show up. Next week, we were supposed to have a United States Senator from Wyoming come. They heard about what was happening in Massachusetts. These are damages. That's what it's called, damages. This lawsuit is about 2 things. It's about exposing the corruption within our own party, and it's about money. Because we're going to win damages that are going to go into the pockets of the Republican Party in the RTC. That's who's going to benefit from this. Ari Fleischer was supposed to come and do a fundraiser. At the last minute, he came. He said, Jim, I can't come. Ron Kaufman, National Committee man, is supposed to be working with us. He's known Ari since the Bush administration. Bernadette and I were in Nashville, or one of those places. We're sitting in a lobby, and Ari Fleischer walks in the front door. I'd never met Ari. I walk over. I said, Ari, I'm Jim Lyons. He looks at me. He said, Jim, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I never had so much pressure put on me to not come to your state from you know who. That's wrong. That's wrong. And at the time, we didn't get it. But I'm telling you, I know it now. And we're going to continue this fight to make sure that the grassroots are protected and the party is protected. So with that, thank you very much.